Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Guess what? We get to talk about the LG V40 today, surprisingly, and I'm running out of intros. If you guys have a better way for me to actually do introductions in this video, let me know. Real quick reminder, I am picking the third iPhone SE giveaway winner today. If you're watching this recently, like within the next couple weeks, I still have 2 more to give out. So YouTube actually took down my giveaway video. If you want to watch that, you can go back on the channel or go onto my Twitter and you can hear the instructions about how to enter. But that's all the preliminary stuff. The LG V40 actually came out in 2018, so right now, as of me making this video, it's about a year and a half old, but it will be turning 2 years in October this year. So it's not a super old phone, but it's not the latest and greatest, and it's not the newest. And one thing to keep in mind is that with LG phones, and Samsung phones too, but LG more so, these phones depreciate so quickly that even within like a 4-month period after the phones are released, the phones are selling for like half the price, which is pretty insane. For the LG V40, for example, when it came out, it was like probably like $899, $999 even, maybe. It was around that price tag. Right now on Amazon, they're selling for about $238, which if you think about it is completely, I mean, it's like it's like a quarter of the price, and it's been out 2 years or something like that. Not even, you know what I mean? You look at iPhones that sold out, and the iPhone XS that came out in 2018, those things are still selling for over $500, so it's a pretty crazy thing, and there's really nothing we can do about it, to be honest. The LG V40, looking on the front though, we have a 6.4-inch POLED display. It is a 1440p display, and this panel actually, you know, is one of the things that have held up quite well on this phone. It's definitely one of the things that really pop out to me. One thing that I like about it, for some reason, I don't know why, the screen has like a noticeable amount of bezel on it compared to like an iPhone 10 or the XS or the iPhone 11 Pro. It just has a little bit more thickness to the bezel, but I kind of like that. I don't know why. It might even be like a placebo effect. It might be like the same exact amount of bezel around the display, but it kind of like looks better to me. But I don't like how that bottom bezel is thicker than the side bezels, but it's not a big deal. Up top, we actually have a notch with a dual camera setup, which is really interesting, which I'll hit on in a second. And that really pretty much covers it up for the front. There's not too much else going on. It's a good display. I like it a lot. POLED, I think, has like plastic OLED or something like that. I honestly don't, but it's a good display, and I do like it a lot, so that's definitely one of its highlights. We have USB Type-C on this phone, which is cool, and on the back we have a glass back, which is nice, a fingerprint sensor, which I do like a lot. I do like having physical fingerprint sensors more than inbuilt fingerprint sensors or fingerprint sensors on the power button. I like things that are on the back or on the front, to be honest. That's just me. And we have a triple camera setup, which I'll get into in a second as well. On the outside, I'll definitely tell you, I think it's holding up quite well. Like I've stated, I mean, it's a good panel, it's a good build quality, it feels good in the hands. The really cool thing about this phone is that there's 2 storage variants, which I'll get into in a second, but this phone also has a microSD card slot, which is really cool and really, really important. For the future of phones, if we don't have any expandable storage, that's going to really suck, because we're going to be limited in the amount of storage options we can get, and we're always going to have to choose the storage models at the time of purchase. With this one, you can get the base model, save some money, and then expand the storage through the SD card, which is really cool. This one also has IP68 dust and water resistance, which is awesome. It's also MIL STD 801G compliant, so it's pretty much the same compliance as the Samsung Galaxy S8 Active, so that's kind of the best way I can put it. So it's pretty durable, and if you dip it in water, it's going to be fine. So that really pretty much covers it up on the outside. Nothing too crazy, but I definitely do like the way it looks and the way it feels for sure. Now moving on to the software side of things. This thing was released with Android 8.1 Oreo. It is going to be getting, it already has Android 9.0 Pie. There were rumors that it's going to be getting Android 10, but I have no way if that's actually going to happen or not. Maybe by the time you're watching this, it already got it, or it's already been confirmed that it's not getting it. So either or, I think Android Pie, I mean, it kind of sucks that I only got one version of Android so far, but I do think it might get the next version of Android. So the LG G7 series, those usually get an extra version, not an extra version, but they usually get 2 versions. So I'm pretty sure the V line is almost more or less the same. I've owned every single V line series except the V50, and I think it's going to be getting Android 10, but like I said, I haven't really heard anything about it in a while, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the one thing I dislike the most about this phone would definitely be the software, and it's not just exclusive to the LG V line, it's exclusive to the LG G line as well. It's like their whole entire lineup of phones, their software is so clunky and so weird. I don't know why they do the things that they do. You look at phones like the OnePlus, even on Samsung's Galaxy on their One UI 2, that series, I mean, that software is not even that bad. I mean, it's still really weird and it still has a lot of ways to go, but I do think that if they just took the approach, if LG took the approach and went with a more simplistic design and more minimalistic design, they would be so much better in the long run. Their software really reminds me of like Huawei software and Xiaomi software. It's very weird, and I think they can do a much better job if they just go the more stock Android approach. Everyone knows stock Android is better better. And if you can get like a OnePlus Oxygen OS type of design, that would be amazing. That would be top tier. And they just need to go back to their roots. You look at phones like the LG Nexus 4, that was even the Nexus 5X, that was like a collaboration between Google and LG. And if they kind of took that more approach, they would be much better. So the software isn't horrible, but it definitely could need some work for sure. I think they can definitely do much better in the software department. So that covers that up in the software. Now let's hit on the performance side of things. This thing was released with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 630 GPU. And there were two different models of the LG V40, the 64 and 128 gigabyte models. And both those models had 6 gigabytes of RAM. So not a crazy difference between them besides the storage models, but it's not like you're getting extra RAM or anything. But if you want that extra storage, you can go for the top tier model. But like I said, you can always expand the storage through a micro SD card slot. So that's a really important thing to know. Now in terms of the performance, I think it's a pretty good performing phone still. The only thing that really is the downside of it would probably be the software, but that's kind of a software thing, like a performance thing. But in terms of the performance, I mean, really anything I threw at it, it handled for the most part. There were times where maybe it would stutter a little bit, but again, I think that had more so to do with the software and not so much to do with the hardware, because the software is just as important as the hardware. The hardware in this phone is more than capable. I mean, you're getting that 845, you're getting the octa-core, you're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM, which in 2020, what I can tell you is that is like probably the bottom tier I would go. Maybe I would say 4 gigabytes of RAM on some phones, but on an LG phone, I would highly recommend at least 6 gigabytes of RAM, future-proofing yourself quite a bit, which I really do like. So the performance of this phone, I think, is still really capable in 2020. Really, whatever you're going to throw at it, it's going to handle. If you do higher intensive gamings, if you try to multitask between the games, I think you're going to have a pretty decent experience with it. There probably will be times where it might stutter here and there, or might be weird issues here and there. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen with any phone, but I do think this phone specifically handles pretty well. So if you got to base it on your use case though. If you're somebody who, doesn't use a lot of apps and you just kind of go open Snapchat, Instagram, and move on with your life, you're probably not going to see that big of a performance difference if you go use this phone or like a Nexus 1 or something like that. Totally joking. Obviously that was a joke. But if you kind of go to like the top tier performance, if you kind of use your phone a ton and you're doing a lot of crazy things with it, you might start to see this phone maybe aging a little bit, especially phones compared to like the Samsung Galaxy S10 or the S10 Plus or those phones. So it isn't that crazy of a deal, but I think majority of you watching this, you probably own the LG V40, you're thinking about getting it. And if you're an average user, you probably will be fine with the performance. So that pretty much covers it up there. Now hitting on the cameras, this is one thing that I think is one of the biggest highlights for this phone for sure. So we have 3 camera sensors on the back, a 12 megapixel standard lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, and then 2 camera sensors on the front, a standard 8 megapixel sensor and a 5 megapixel wide angle lens. Now with that back camera, what I really do like about the sensor is that you have 3 camera setups, and now in 2020, I always say this, that is one of the most important things ever. The more camera sensors you have, the better situation that if you're stuck in a situation where you only have 1 camera sensor but that quality of the camera is really good, you're still not going to be as capable as a camera who, maybe not be as good quality, but you have more camera sensors. That's always one thing you have to kind of keep in mind. So with this camera, the camera sensors are actually pretty decent even now in 2020. Not much has changed in camera quality, but the camera quality is actually pretty good. The UI of the camera is kind of weird, but it has some features built in, which is cool. You're able to do 4K at 60 frames, 1080p at 240, and the one thing I really do like about this camera sensor is that you have those extra camera hardware features. You have that telephoto and that ultra-wide sensor, which I really do love about this phone. So it's not an end-all be-all, but that is one really cool thing that I do like about this phone for sure. So the camera is definitely a thumbs up in my books. Now ending it off with the battery life, this thing has a 3300 mAh battery built in, and I do think it's one of the weirder aspects of this phone for sure. It's not like a horrible battery life, but it's not like a really great battery life. The V series was known for having like really amazing parts and like really great battery life, but this phone specifically, I don't know what they did with it. I didn't really find myself having that great battery life in it. It's not even that old, so the battery probably hasn't degraded too much. It's degraded for sure, but it hasn't degraded too much, so I'm not really too sure what they did here. But in my opinion, the battery life I would say is probably average. It's not amazing, but it's not horrible, so it's really like in the middle. It's not a pro, it's not a con, it's strictly like in the middle. So I think that's pretty much how I would cover up the battery aspect of it. Now to sum up the video and to answer the question, is the LG V40 still worth it in 2020? What I can tell you is, yes, I do think it's still worth it in 2020. I think if you own this phone, there's definitely a lot more life left in it. If you're planning on getting this phone, I would highly highly recommend it. It's not even that expensive. I mean, it's $200 something. It is expensive, but compared to $1,000 phones that we have now, it still is very capable. This phone is only one series behind. The V50 is the only newer one, and the V60 is coming out in October, so this thing is still pretty new if you think about it. So if I were you, I would 100% recommend picking up a V40 if you want, but if you can spend a little bit more money, even I think the Galaxy S9 Plus is in the same price tag as this one, so, and I think that one is highly more capable of a phone than this thing. So if you want, I would recommend not also getting this one if you're looking at it, but getting a Galaxy S9 Plus if you can. That phone is very capable and it has a lot going for it as well. So I'll find the cheapest V40s and Galaxy S9 Pluses on Amazon and link them down in the description below so you guys can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.